A series talk is a series of retrospective analysis critique videos on a series of video games to compare and contrast them over the years. Back in 2017 I started one on Mario and Luigi RPG, and in the time since, I thought of other game series that I could possibly take on. Both the Super Mario and Legend of Zelda series came to my mind, but I never thought I could really do either one of those series justice after so many other content creators already have. Later on I had this thought. It was about Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, and the interesting relationship those games have not just with their respective predecessors, but also with each other. I then started to think about the interesting relationship that Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda have had with each other over the years, harking all the way back to their NES days. So I wanted to start in a series talk retrospective comparing and contrasting Mario and Zelda over the years, just to see where that topic might go. Or I would have, until the 28th of December in 2018. On that day, I discovered another Nintendo franchise which is still going fairly strong to this day. Metroid. Super Mario, The Legend of Zelda and Metroid have a lot in common. They're all first-party Nintendo franchises, their respective protagonists have all been playable fighters in every Super Smash Bros. Game, and as of Ultimate, their respective adversaries have been too. However, there are a number of differences, especially when it comes to Metroid. Unlike Mario and Zelda, Metroid was not created by Miyamoto, it hasn't had a game on every Nintendo system, and with a few exceptions, development over the main games has been outsourced to other studios since Fusion, just to name a few of those differences. Mario and Zelda are also largely more popular and have received more attention over the years. However, the original Metroid was made as an amalgamation of the two, combining Zelda's exploration with Mario's platforming. So I'm seeing a link between these franchises, and I'm going to explore how these three series have grown together over the years. I don't know if this is going to be good, I'm ultimately just interested in seeing where this will go. Nothing but morbid curiosity here. Each video will be dedicated to a group of games within an era boundary and will contain at least one game from each franchise. Some of the groupings may seem a little odd, but I've chosen them intentionally because of the way the games have been designed, and I'll go over each video group as we progress through the series. There may be some games skipped which I'll also address as we go. This series talk will be titled A Nintendo Trinity. Part 1 will discuss Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda and Metroid for the NES, and we're going to start it right now. I'm Hat Wearing Gamer, and this is A Nintendo Trinity Part 1, Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda and Metroid. Also going forward, I will be referring to them as Mario 1, Zelda 1 and Metroid 1 respectively. Out of the three games, Mario 1 has kind of an unfair advantage simply by not being Mario's first starring role. Miyamoto had a chance to refine Mario's physics and movement and work out what will help engage players and make the game feel more fun. Zelda and Metroid didn't have this advantage, but it's good that they first came on a console anyway, because it's not like their overall design would work for an arcade machine. Who knows how long one might have stood in front of an arcade machine exploring Hyrule or Zebes. Probably would have happened until the manager came up and tapped the child's shoulder and said, "Mate, your mum's here, you need to go home." Although admittedly when I was writing this, I thought about Metroid's password system and the possibility that the child could stop playing Metroid, write down the password, take it to another or the same machine at a later time and continue their adventure right where they left off. Today, all three of these games stand as relics. Zelda 1 and Metroid 1 launched two legendary series, and Mario 1 more or less solidified the Super Mario franchise. But what can we say about these games today? They've all been reworked and refined over the years, leaving them dated, but I've noticed a charm that's come from the elements that made them dated, and has helped me see something in these games that I haven't seen in any of these franchises' respective games today. I didn't grow up in the NES era, so with possible exception to Mario 1, I didn't play these games in my younger years. In fact, I didn't even complete Zelda 1 or Metroid 1 for the first time until recording footage for this video. I played Zelda 1 for the first time in 2011, and in all the years past, I never beat level 5 until just recently. My first time playing Metroid 1 was around the same time, as I could play it through the 3DS Ambassador program, which was 20 free games, 10 NES and 10 GBA if you bought the 3DS before its first major price drop. I didn't really take to it at the time, and never really got far in that universe until I played its remake Metroid Zero Mission in February of 2019. That playthrough on the internet actually left me knowing more about this game than I should have before playing it, but at least I got through it. Mario 1 on the other hand, I played on the deluxe version for the Game Boy Color back in the day, and I played it to death, but I never found it easy. So many game overs, but a game over on the deluxe version means nothing more than going back to your last save, which you can do at any time. You might lose a checkpoint though. With that skill, I wouldn't have lasted too long on the NES version before being frustrated over going back to 1-1 every time I got a game over. I'm probably better at it today than I was back then, but I still found later levels to be very challenging, even with 1-up mushroom strategies and warp zones. Coins and power-ups were scattered and levels were getting harder to beat. This might be Nintendo 64 childhood 90s me talking, but this game is hard, and when you get a game over, there's no forgiveness. Zelda 1 and Metroid 1 have a little forgiveness when it comes to their game overs. All that would happen was being sent back to the start of wherever you are, still armed with the permanent pickups that you've collected, but that didn't make things much easier. Link would always have only 3 hearts regardless of how many containers you have, and Samus would only have 30 health regardless of how many energy tanks you have. Now, I was frustrated by these factors as much as the next guy, but I noticed how the difficulty of these 3 games affected the way I played. It was different to the way I usually play each of their successors. It was how I engaged with the worlds of each of them. I was cautious about coins and lives in Mario 1 like never before, and the lack of coins in World 8 gave me points of genuine tension. Even though I could get used to the level design after multiple attempts, I always tried to rack up as many coins and 1-ups as possible to keep myself alive until the end. Zelda 1 and Metroid 1 are similar in this respect to each other. The low health kept me wanting to engage with enemies so that I could get more heart pickups as well as Metroid 1, but for energy. I wouldn't often engage with enemies like this in either of their successors. These elements add so much to the gameplay that future games are quite often criticised for, such as them being too easy. It was the Mario game design that made 1-up mushrooms relevant, and there was never a reason to not pick up a coin. In Zelda 1, the only reason to avoid enemies was not wanting to risk taking damage when against them, which invites critical decision making over enemy engagement that could make or break your adventure. Metroid 1 is in a similar boat with the enemies and them dropping health, but I sometimes found them easier to fight since Samus's main attack is long range, or at least it becomes long range fairly quick, and even before that, it's medium range and still longer than Link's sword. But here avoiding enemies is a lot more difficult, and the only way to get around them outright is freezing them, and that's if you have Ice Beam and only fire once rather than spamming. Not to mention that in my desperate search for health, I would still freeze them but use that to my advantage by strategically repositioning myself for an easier kill. Or not. Obviously some elements haven't aged well, like the fact that both Zelda 1 and Metroid 1 restart your health at fixed numbers rather than a percentage of the max health. I'm not suggesting anything too high, so maybe 60 to 70%, so that the enemy engagement can still happen without it being too much of a burden on the player. I don't think Mario 1 has aged badly due to these factors, but I know they wouldn't work as well in future Mario titles, and in fact, some of those future titles have suffered for it. It took until Mario Odyssey for 1-up mushrooms to be removed and declared irrelevant. I didn't think any future titles were negatively impacted by changing these because developers were still trying to work out how to design games for a home console rather than an arcade machine, and this is especially evident in Mario 1. I'm just mostly fascinated by the different way I approach these games as opposed to the way I approach their successors. Sure, it can get tedious and frustrating to build up your health again, and I wish it would just get me back up to the top so that I can get on with it, and I'm even grateful for the way all 3 series have improved since, but these elements still give these games their charm. It's a difficulty charm that kept me engaged in ways I was never engaged before. In the next video we'll be looking at Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario The Lost Levels, Super Mario Land, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and Metroid 2 Return of Samus. I'm Hat Wearing Gamer, and this has been a Nintendo Trinity, a series talk. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was a bit of an interesting idea that I've come up with that I don't know if it's going to be good, but we'll see. So hopefully you'll stick around for more. The next video will come when it comes, whenever it's ready. I'm gonna guess probably November, December, something like that. Yeah. Which, if it does, this will be like the most number of scripted videos I've uploaded in 1 year, which it'll be 5, which is pretty good for my channel. That's like almost 1 every 2 months. I mean, that's how it started, because the first one was in January, then there was one in March, and then there was one in May, and maybe there could be, like, I mean, this is September, but like, maybe there could be one in December. So it's almost one every 2 months. Anyway, I'm Hat-Wearing Gamer, so thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Also, real quick, super huge thank you shout out to @NateConlon on Twitter for all the new graphics that he's made me. They look absolutely superb. And this is just going to be the look of the channel going forward for the next while. You can also find these graphics on like Twitch and Twitter. Speaking of which, follow me on both of those platforms because there's updates and streams whenever I feel like it. And yeah, that's it. Also, you can support me on Patreon if you wish as well. Alright, thank you all for watching. Bye.